Reporter Dana Morse joins us now. Now, Dana, how are people feeling about this 7 days of extended lockdown?
Well, I think people are feeling frustrated, and it's been hard. This is the fourth lockdown in Victoria, but the state government has said that this is the only way that we can combat this extremely transmissible Kappa virus. And to what you've just said before, we can now add another case. We believe that another resident at our care in Maidstone has tested positive. Earlier this week, there were 4 cases linked to the our care site. That was 2 workers, a worker's son and a 99-year-old resident. Now we're hearing that another resident has tested positive. They're believed to be a close contact of that first resident who's now in hospital, and we believe this resident will be transferred to hospital later today as per the precautions. Now, we are going into another 7 days of lockdown in Greater Melbourne, and we are hoping that restrictions will ease in the regions just a little bit so they are able to reopen somewhat. Things will be a little bit different. You will be able to move 10 kilometres from your home, and Year 11 and 12 students will be able to go back to school. We'll also see some businesses will be able to go and open again as long as they're doing outside work. So we're looking at things like landscaping, maintenance and house painting. So there should be some relief for those industries at least. What is of concern for health authorities is how far these exposure sites are spread apart. It's over 350 now, and we are seeing sites popping up in places like Euroa, in places like Anglesea, and that's a real concern. And as you mentioned before, there is that family from who went to New South Wales and have since tested positive. We're still waiting on the genomic sequencing to come back, and we expect that in 24 hours, and that will likely link this family to the outbreak that originated with the South Australian hotel quarantine leak. But what that won't tell us is where they've picked up this virus, and we understand that contact tracers still don't know where this family could have contracted that virus. Now, even with the restrictions possibly easing in Greater Melbourne at the end of this next 7-day lockdown, the acting Premier, James Merlino, has made it abundantly clear that there will be no travel between regional and Greater Melbourne before the Queen's birthday long weekend. Now, that's a big tourism trade, and that'll be a massive blow to those regional areas. But they're saying they cannot risk this virus escaping Greater Melbourne and getting into those regions.
Now, Dana, this is the news that local businesses there did not want. What did the acting Premier say about that?
Well, he's announced another financial support package for businesses. So on Sunday, $250 million was committed as a business support package. Today, he's announced a further $209 million that will go into business support. Now, businesses will be able to apply for relief grants, essentially, that will help them cover some of their costs during the lockdown. We understand that regional areas will be covered for the 7 days that they will be in lockdown, and that the grant amount will double for metro areas. So if it's a $3,000 grant for the regional areas, because the metro areas are in lockdown for double the time, we'll see those grants increase to double the amount. Now, what we haven't seen from either the federal or the state government is a wage subsidy program. And we know that the workers here in Victoria have been incredibly hard hit by multiple lockdowns. And it's workers in industries that are casualised and contract workers. Now, the state government said they are calling on the federal government and saying you need to provide some kind of JobKeeper for these workers. And the State Treasurer, Tim Pallas, has been in touch with Josh Frydenberg, and the acting Premier, James Merlino, was planning to bring it up with Scott Morrison later this afternoon. If they're unsuccessful, our acting Premier Merlino intends to bring it up at National Cabinet, but it's really not to say yet whether or not the federal government will commit to providing some kind of wage subsidy for those casual workers.
Thanks, Dana. And that's